Hello and welcome, everybody, back to the Questioning Behaviour Podcast. It's me, one of your hosts, Sarah, here with my good friend, Merle.
Hi.
You're the dummy that don't believe in science. All your projects always be denied.
And today we are going to be going into a topic that I don't think either of us thought we would be exploring this on this podcast series, but we're both incredibly excited for as true crime fanatics, as is typical for women our age and our demographic. We are going to be talking to an expert about pink collar crime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yes. I mean, have you ever heard of pink collar crime before this, with all your wealth and knowledge of criminal behaviour and activity that you've drawn in through podcasts and TV shows, books?
I love how you make me sound like some type of expert, like I have a secret past and a secret, chest of knowledge somewhere. No, I'll be quite frank. So I know our guest, so Kelly Paxton, through Twitter. That's essentially it. So I knew through that what she was about and what her work entailed and what she was looking at, which is all really, really interesting stuff. But before that, no, I had absolutely no clue what pink collar crime was. I had no clue crime came in colors.
Well, I think I could definitely say I heard of white and blue collar crime. But I thought that's just where the crime rainbow ended. I didn't realize it extended further. So always happy to learn something new about criminal behavior. It's so fascinating, right? I mean,
it's absolutely fascinating.
Why do you like true crime so much?
I think I like true crime less than you do. Like, I love a good detective series, but I know you're really into your true crime. But why do I like it? It's so different and such a deviation from what we assume to be a normal mind, and the pattern of reasoning that you have to follow to, in this episode specifically, to be like, I'm gonna steal money from a company where I work at, or in the true crime, the more common sense of true crime, I'm gonna watch a series in which a guy who suspiciously looks a lot like my neighbor has murdered out at least several women in that neighborhood. It's just your mind struggles to grapple with behavior like that. So I think it's a novelty, it's a deviation, and it's just something we struggle to understand. It's a challenge to the brain, essentially, I think.
Yeah, it's that morbid curiosity. I mean, part of it is you're not supposed to enjoy it, and obviously
it's horrid.
It's stories about real people, which makes it fascinating, but also horrifying and chilling and sickening at times. So there is that sense of maybe where glorifying it and putting too much of this like Hollywood style storytelling tint over these true horrific acts. But I mean, for me, it's just I think, as you said, like, I just can't imagine what it's like to be in someone's brain to do that and to rationalize out, committing a crime against someone else. And I mean, maybe that's a bit naive from me, because, as we're going to find out, that, everyone has the capacity to engage in criminal behavior, right?
Absolutely.
Your context and environment and, the amount of stress that you may be under. But yeah, I mean, I just want to get inside people's minds. I think generally that's the through line of stuff that interests me. Can I get inside of someone else's mind and broaden my own perspective as well?
I mean, that's very fair. So in that case, how about we move on to our interviewee, to our guest, and we get inside her mind, because her mind has definitely been inside the minds of people who commit pink collar crime. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview. All right, so today we are actually talking to Kelly Paxton. Kelly, we are very excited to have you here. Now, would you please tell the audience who you are and what you do?
So my name's Kelly Paxton. I am in Bend, Oregon, way out west, and I'm most known for being the pink collar crime expert. I'm a certified fraud examiner and private investigator. And before everyone gets all weirded out, pink collar crime is about the position, not the gender. So women really excel at it, but a man can be a pink collar criminal also. So that's kind of what I'm known for. I have a new podcast called Great Women in Fraud because I mentor many people in the anti-fraud community. And like your guys' podcast, I think podcasts are like the best thing going to learn.
Fair play. Then in general, I suppose for the audience, because obviously we are a behavioral science podcast, we live and breathe the stuff, but you've made it quite clear in, talking to us beforehand, which is, it's little tidbits that the audience doesn't get because that's just for us, that you are not a behavioral scientist and you don't identify as a behavioral scientist. So we should probably make that very clear from the start. So what do you identify as?
I'd like to say I'm a fraud behaviorist.
Okay.
If I could go back in time, I would become a behavioral scientist because people aren't rational. They absolutely aren't rational. And how that affects me is, I investigate crimes. I investigate embezzlement. I investigate, insider jobs. And if people were rational, they wouldn't commit crime. Because if you commit a crime, you're going to get caught and you're going to go to jail and So, but people do it anyway. So I like to say I'm a fraud behaviorist / therapist because I deal with a lot of victims of embezzlement. And when you get stolen from by a trusted employee, and most pink collar criminals are trusted employees, it's a gut punch like twice. So the money is gone, but then this is a person that you've worked with maybe for decades. And you're like, how did I not see it coming? How did I trust them? I'm also known as the fraud hashtag queen. I love hashtags. And it started really innocently. I did hashtags to keep track of what I was tweeting. And I think, Merle, that's how we met was through Twitter because I love Twitter too. And so I have a lot of hashtags, and one of mine is hashtag trust is not an internal control. Oh. And people change over their lives, and someone can be, quote, good for, 50 years. And then all of a sudden something happens in their life and they end up stealing. And it doesn't make sense. So that's where I'm not a behavioral scientist. I love what you guys do. I mean, I think it's so fascinating. If I could go back in time and redo my education, I'd be doing what you guys are doing.
Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't sell yourself short. I think you probably are a behavioral scientist. So, yeah, I mean, Merle and I, as the sort of, with no authority, we decree that you may call yourself a behavioral scientist going forward. Yes.
I am so honored. Oh my gosh. Day by day.
Yes, we're bestowing this right upon you now. So go forth and behavioral science. But, pink collar crime is, to be honest, if I can be perfectly honest, I've never heard of pink collar crime before today. I mean, blue collar crime, white collar crime. I mean, the theme's about colors. I don't know who decides what to call different crimes. But so, can you give us a brief history about pink collar crime, what it is, when it occurs, how often it occurs, all that sort of stuff?
So the term white collar crime actually didn't happen until 1939. And then it took 50 years, 1989, Dr. Kathleen Daly, who's a criminologist, she popularized the term. She didn't even come up with the term. And I'm going to say it kind of died a death on the vine until I found out about it in 2008, 2009. I was working at a sheriff's office doing garden variety embezzlement cases. And I realized all my suspects, except for one, were women. And I had been a special agent for U.S. Customs, and I was used to dealing with bad guys like money launderers, drug dealers, pedophiles. And then I go and work at this local sheriff's office doing, theft from business cases. And I see these nice, regular looking moms and, pillars of the society embezzling. And I Googled the term women embezzlers, and I found the term pink collar crime. And I got the domain name, and I have been speaking about pink collar crime since basically 2009. So the actual definition is petty amounts stolen by low to medium level employees, comma, primarily women, comma, from the workplace. So even Dr. Daly knew not to say exclusively women. And there was this, I'm going to say, horrid television show called Pink Collar Crimes with Marcia Clark, the attorney who lost the OJ case. And she made it about women committing any type of crime. And it isn't. It's so not that. It's embezzlement. But people think pink collar means women. And actually, a funny fraud fact is not until 1917 did children wear different color clothes. Prior to that, children all wore like white or ivory. But then marketers, behavioral scientists in sort of a weird way, were like, we want to get people to buy more clothes. So let's do blue and pink. And actually, boys had pink before girls had pink. It didn't switch to girls having pink until the 1950s. So, but there's a famous criminologist who's passed, Gil Geis, and he wrote in 2012, he's like, what's this collar thing? No one even wears collars to work. And I'm looking at you guys, none of us have collars. Like,
no, I'm in a hoodie.
Yeah. And I'm in a sweatshirt.
There we go.
Just a stereotype. So that's one of the things that I've kind of like landed on is like, it's easier to just have stereotypes. And the stereotype is bad guys. We don't have stereotypes of bad women, but women can steal. And actually, women embezzle better than men, I'm going to say.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, so they embezzle less money, but they embezzle for longer periods of time. So it takes them longer to get caught.
Why? How?
I think it's because they do smaller amounts and they do it over time. And again, it's a stereotype. You've got this nice office manager and she's so sweet and she's got kids and she has a nice little husband and you just don't think of her as a bad guy. But she also has the keys to your cash and she knows every dollar coming in and every dollar coming out.
Clever.
So fascinating. I mean, Mella and I we're a little bit obsessed with crime. We are like the classic true crime fans. So as we're talking about gender and crime, I'm thinking, the traditional murder weapons, like they say, men kill by stabbing, women, don't stab, women poison. So this tie between gender and behavior and crime seems really interesting. But it sounds like you're trying to break down a lot of these, misconceptions about gender and crime. Maybe that's why, as you say, women are better at it because they're less suspect in terms of being criminal.
Yeah. And, I get a lot of pushback for the term pink collar crime, and I get it by women. Like men love the fact that I'm highlighting, a lot of women stealing. So men kind of like it. They're like, it's about time you figured out that those women can steal. And, but women are the ones who push back. The bigger issue is that women are in lower level positions, and the definition is low to medium level positions in the workplace. So the bigger issue is, why is it that women are in the low positions? In the United States, 90% of bookkeepers are females. So they should push back the fact that women are kept in low positions.
Fair enough. So for my clarification, if you were a medium to high worker in a firm and you then start embezzling, does it have a different name?
So this is where I am personally really conflicted, because I want embezzlement just to be known as embezzlement, but people don't think of it that way. So if you get a CFO who steals, should they be a pink collar criminal or should they be a white collar criminal? Pink collar is kind of a subset of white collar crime. I think it should be the offense, not the offender.
Okay.
And actually, when Edwin Sutherland in 1939 made the term white collar crime, it was about high social status. And a lot of people pushed back against that. A lot of criminologists really pushed back. So I would like it to be hashtag it's offense, not offender. And so if you're a CEO or, the accounts payable clerk, it's still a pink collar crime, but that's not, I can't get that across to people. So I just say garden variety embezzlement.
Garden variety. Yeah, great. It works. So do you think then that as pink collar crime is currently defined, because it being from low to medium workers, or the level that you are in the workplace, do you think it is predominantly sexism and like structural income inequality that is driving this type of crime?
I definitely think it could be. So in the fraud world, we have the fraud triangle, which is opportunity, pressure, and rationalization. Now, most people think you can only control for opportunity. And for a long time, I kind of went along with that. But then it's like, you know what? You can control for rationalization a little bit. So I use this example all the time. I have a colleague who went to a business and she downloaded all the data because the guy who owned the business thought he was getting ripped off. So she downloads the data and he goes around and he says, who does what in the business? And he gets to his administrative assistant and he goes, oh, don't look at anything she touches because she's too dumb to steal from me. Guess who's...
Of course it was her.
Now, if it would have been me there, I would have said, okay, Sally, I'm going to go take you to Neiman Marcus and you're really going to learn how to steal. No, I would never do that. But that sort of rationalization, treating your employees that way, is terrible. And then you also have, business owners who, some of them I refer to as masters of the universe, and they live out of the corporate checkbook. So they take their family to a conference, and let's say the conference is in, the Mediterranean, and they go to a trade show. Yeah, I know, pre-COVID, you could travel. They go to a trade show for 30 minutes, and they take their family to a lovely vacation. They come back, they hand their Black American Express bill to the accounts payable person. It's $20,000, and they say, so you took your family, how do you want me to break it out? And the business owner says, it's none of your business. Just pay the damn bill. Now, that accounts payable clerk is barely making a living, probably. And it doesn't make it right for them to do it. But 6 months later, 6 years later, they're like, God, I just want to go to, Brighton for the weekend. I need 200 pounds. Like, my boss stole 20,000 pounds. Yeah. So what goes through their mind?
That it's completely fair to do this.
Yeah, they're like, I'm just getting a piece. And you know what? He made me stay, or she made me stay and work overtime last weekend. And my Christmas bonus was terrible. And you can't control rationalization. You could pay your office manager £1 million a year. But if they have a £2 million lifestyle, they will steal from you if they have the opportunity.
And humans, we're very good at this post hoc rationalization, right? We're very good at creating these narratives and convincing ourselves, yes, actually, I'm well within my rights to do this. Yeah. So that's super interesting. I'm interested as well in this pressure part of the triangle. I mean, what do you mean by pressure? Maybe I'm just being a bit dumb here, but yeah, tell me more.
No. So, and this is incredibly important right now in the COVID world, because we are feeling financial pressures maybe that you have never felt in your lifetime. For example, in the United States right now, a lot of hospitals are not allowing elective surgeries. And elective doesn't mean that it's, cosmetic surgery. It might be a knee or a hip. So you have, just for an example, surgeons who make a very healthy living and they have a very expensive lifestyle, and all of a sudden they can't do surgeries. That's a financial pressure. And we see in the States that there's these, they call it a paycheck protection program loans, and there are people just robbing it blind. And so we're having financial pressures that normally you would never have in certain occupations. But then for just I'm going to say lower occupations, maybe a spouse has been let go. Maybe, God forbid, someone's gotten sick and, either can't go to work or, worst case, has died, and now you've got your mortgage to pay for. So the financial pressures are really hard to control.
It's interesting. Yeah. So this sounds like almost like a combi model, like of behavior.
Yeah. What is my capability? What is my opportunity? Right. And what is my motivation to embezzle?
These are all the factors that sort of facilitate this behavior. Super interesting. So, how much research is there out there on this? Or is this much more, work being done in the applied space of actually catching criminals, like understanding criminals to catch them?
So that's really interesting because I will say that embezzlement is different than a murder. Because if you have a murder, most likely you're going to have a dead body. And it's very clear you have a dead body. And those cases get reported to law enforcement. But embezzlement type cases in the States, they say, and statistics are, you guys know better than anyone. Statistics are whatever you want statistics to say. They say 15% of embezzlement cases get turned into law enforcement. So it's a unknown because we don't know. People don't turn cases into law enforcement like a murder case because they can just deal with it. And the number one reason business owners don't turn cases into law enforcement is shame and humiliation. They're really embarrassed that, this happened and how did they not see it? And so a lot of cases aren't turned into law enforcement. And then the dark side of me, I'm going to say, is the business owner who has 2 sets of books and says, I'm not going to law enforcement because they're going to look at all my books.
Right.
And those aren't right. Those will tell you a very different story, and it's not just embezzlement we have to worry about.
Right. And I've had a case where a woman got caught, and when the business owner confronted her, she's like, I'm going to turn you into the IRS. And the business owner did not. Yeah, the business owner didn't fall for the bluff. She turned her in anyway. But they're desperate. And these low to mid-level employees, they know every dollar that goes in the business and every dollar that goes out of the business. So they really can be in a position of power, and you might be scared of that. So that's another reason that I think a lot of cases don't go to law enforcement. And I tell victims, get back to work. The best thing you can do is get back to work and make more money. The problem is that they second guess everything. They just second guess everything because, it's like a bad divorce with lots of money.
Yeah, I can imagine the average divorce is probably cheaper than the fallout from an embezzlement case. So after these people, presumably these are the people in higher positions because they are the ones that got swindled, to put it nicely and quite cutesy. So what is the main effect of having been embezzled? Is it this lack of trust? Is it do the companies afterwards, after these people presumably go back to management positions, does the management style change a lot? Do you see a lot of difference in how a company was managed before and after the embezzlement?
Absolutely. Because, like I said, they second guess their decisions. Especially if it's an employee that's been with you for 10 years and you're like, how did I never see that? So then you're like, oh my God, who else in the office is doing this? And then you have to replace that employee. And you're like, who can I trust? And so they second guess a lot of their decisions. I just had something recently where I hired someone and it didn't really go very well. I am second guessing me hiring someone else. And it was for like a coach program. So I just wasn't very happy with it. I thought I had done the due diligence. And so it makes me, I'm going to say, a little, gun shy to go get another coach because how did I make the wrong decision for that? And that's just me and my little business. I can't imagine what it's like in another business. I have a great story. A friend of mine I grew up with, her husband, they're both masters of the universe, incredibly successful. He met me and he found out what I did. And he said incredibly confidently, I will never have to hire you. I pay my people well. Yeah. He goes, I pay my people well. I'm smart and no one would dare steal from me. And I just smile.
Famous last words, I think.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. 18 months later, the wife calls and says he's on the phone. He gets on the phone. He's like, tomorrow morning, my office, 9:00, $750,000 is gone. He's like my best proponent. And so that's the other thing. And this ties to behavioral science is optimism bias.
Oh, yeah.
We all think it will happen to the person next to us because we're smart. We pay well. It won't happen to us. It's kind of like cancer. Cancer is going to happen to them. No. So that optimism bias, and I can't get up in the morning and go to work if I think everyone's going to steal from me.
Oh, true.
We have to trust people, but trust but verify. Ronald Reagan's famous last words, and what is so ironic about that, the town Ronald Reagan was born in is actually the town with the largest municipal embezzlement in the United States.
Love that.
Yeah. Trust but verify. They did not verify.
Clearly.
Amazing. This is so interesting.
You know why I think it's interesting is because we don't relate to Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff, he was rich. He lived on the Upper East Side. We probably don't know anyone who was victimized by him. And honestly, we don't really feel very sorry for his victims, which is completely wrong. There were people that committed suicide when they found out they were broke. So totally wrong. But this crime is relatable because these people live in our neighborhoods. Their kids go to school with our kids. We see them in the grocery store. I have a doctor in Florida who literally sees the person who ripped them off at the grocery store, and it sends them into a tizzy every single time because the cases take so long. So we're fascinated by regular people doing something that's so outside of the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complete violation. Like, personally, it's, if you've been a victim of a crime, it changes everything about the way you view the world and view people you've interacted with. I mean, it's hugely debilitating. So, I mean, it sounds as though even the people who think that they can't be embezzled or they can't be the victims of fraud, definitely can. So what can you do to try and reduce the chances that you'll be a victim of fraud? Are there any sort of key actionable insights that you can share that actually work?
So, yeah. And you know what? These aren't like expensive things to do. So I'm tying this to smaller businesses. The easiest thing to do is to send your business bank statements either home in the mail or to a P.O. box that you control. You need to be the first one to open that bank statement, because with technology, I can make your bank statement look like something that you think it is when really there's only $939 in it. It's not hard to do. So you have to get your bank statement first. The next thing I say is, in the customer service world, it's surprise and delight. Well, I do surprise and delight with your employees. If you only look at checks over, say, $5,000, every so often pull a $1,000 check and say, hey, I want to look at the invoice tied to this. So keep them on their toes, keep them guessing. Because there's a great example where I live that there was a woman who worked for a town and she stole over $800,000 over a period of time. The auditors only looked at a certain month. They looked at the month of June every year, and she knew they only looked at June. So every year she'd steal up until May 31st and she'd go cold turkey for a month. And then July 1st, she'd start stealing again. So mix it up. Like, it's not hard to do. There's all this artificial intelligence, how it's going to stop fraud. If you don't even open your bank statements, all the artificial intelligence in the world is not going to help you.
I find it very interesting that you mentioned this, because you said that, it's through the modern technology that we have, it's super easy to alter a bank statement. I mean, it's good to know. I personally have no clue how to alter a bank statement, if I'm being very honest. But is that something that is going to help us prevent fraud, the use of technology, or is it going to make it so much easier?
Robots don't defraud people, people do.
Yeah, but they can still use robots.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be easier if you use technology to help you to fight fraud, but you can't rely on it. It's just like a background investigation. I've done over 1,000 background investigations, and only 4%, according to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, of fraudsters have criminal histories. That doesn't mean they haven't done it before. It just means they haven't been convicted. And so many times when they're caught, they get fired and they don't go to law enforcement. Like I said, they just don't do it. You can't rely on it. So use it as a tool and as a deterrent, but definitely don't throw it in the bottom drawer and never pay attention to it again. The other thing that I say is like for detecting it, it's called the lifestyle audit, which is kind of includes the parking lot audit. Look out the window and see what your employees are driving. Now, if you have a 30,000 pound a year employee driving a nice Range Rover or a Tesla, bells should be ringing. Like, how is that person driving that nice of a car? Now, maybe they've got a trust fund, maybe they've got a side hustle, but you should kind of like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So just keeping your eyes wide open and listening around the water cooler. I will go in after someone's been, caught embezzling, and I'll talk to coworkers and they'll go, yeah, the lifestyle kind of didn't make sense to me. So pay attention to how a person is. And if all of a sudden the person, they've been wearing stuff from the Gap their whole career, and all of a sudden now they're going to Harrods to shop, well, what happened?
Let's hope for an inheritance of sorts, and hopefully not, the inheritance of the death of your business.
Yeah, or some sort of sugar daddy, sugar mama situation going on there.
Who knows?
This is you've actually created a resource, Kelly. I found on your website this pink collar crime bingo card, which is super fun. And so it's this, for the listener, we'll link it down below so you can take a look. But it's sort of a 5x5 matrix, and some of these things on here I don't know. I wonder if you can give me some insight. So Disneyland, why is Disneyland on this bingo card?
So I do these presentations literally all over the world with PowerPoint. And I have this one, and it shows, I'm on my second montage of 8 people each. Everyone who has stolen and gone to Disneyland. Now, the first time my husband and I took our kids to Disneyland, we had to stay off park in the Residence Inn. We couldn't afford to stay at the Disneyland hotels. So again, if you get an employee who makes $30,000 a year, and they go to Disneyland and they stay at the Grand California, that's a $30,000 vacation. So,
fucking hell! Excuse the language. So, I really love personal finance. I had a slight stroke hearing that number.
Yeah, so it kind of goes to lifestyle, but everyone knows Disneyland. And I can't tell you how many, there was just a woman who pled guilty to stealing $3.1 million. She spent $220,000 of that at Disney, like Disney cruises, Disney.
High roller.
Yeah, it's there's another guy, a man, who stole $11 million from a mega church in California. And there's this club at Disneyland called Club 33.
Yes.
Yeah. I never knew about Club 33. Tom Hanks belongs to it. It's $10,000 to get in and $20,000 a year for special, entrance or things like that. This guy joined. If you have an employee who belongs to Club 33, you've got a problem. So I kind of pick on Disneyland, but you can switch it to any other really high vocation. But that's the thing about embezzlement cases. You read about them, and when Bernie Madoff ripped off all those people, did we hear what Bernie Madoff spent the money on?
No,
not really. But when you get a woman or a man who steals from a church or a soccer club, they will say they stole and they went to Disney. There was a woman who stole $500,000 from doctors in Alaska. She went to a Pink concert. I literally can't make that up. Cannot make it up. They go to concert.
Is a Pink concert that expensive? I've seen Pink live, which, by the way, is amazing, and I would recommend it to anyone. She's an excellent artist. But that concert is not $500,000, right? Or did I get a good deal?
She went to a lot of concerts. It's just interesting when you read the press releases about these embezzlement cases, they literally say what they spend the money at. And I mean, I used to work these places and I knew where they spent every last dime. And it's kind of like, do we know where Bernie spent every last dime? No, he was rich. I'm sure he took his family to Disneyland too. So.
I mean, yeah. I'm sure there's records we could check, but so is this type of embezzlement from people who we know are from low to medium jobs, both status and definitely income-wise, is this the only way for them to splurge? Are they embezzling to feel as if they have a much higher financial or social status and have these types of things in their lives, which otherwise they would never be able to afford?
Right. So another one of my hashtags is hashtag greed not need. Now, sometimes it starts off with an actual financial pressure. And then they steal and they're like, that was kind of easy. And I mean, I joke that they go from cheap shampoo to Aveda and the lifestyle just creeps up. Like, my husband has no idea what my fine Italian leather boots cost. I round down. He literally has no idea. He just is like, she likes boots. And it becomes a lifestyle. It's like when you get a raise, and this goes to behavioral economics, when you get a raise in a year, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to take it and just put it in savings and pretend it never happens.
Preferably invest. Preferably, if you have a windfall, check your debt, settle your debts, save if your rainy day fund isn't ideal, and the rest should be in investments.
Well, okay, another fun hashtag is hashtag no one steals to save.
Oh, no, I didn't think they did.
Yeah, but it is interesting, though. It's almost like they know that it can't last forever. So need to enjoy it while I've got it, in that sense. So that short-term expenditure, release joy. Yeah, interesting.
Well, Daniel Kahneman, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is money fixes everything. It's the quick fix. Sure. System 2 is you need to have a budget. You need to live within the budget. Let's figure out what we need. But System 1 overtakes System 2. And so people think money solves everything. And really, it causes a lot of problems. I mean, what's the saying that anything over $70,000 a year, you're not as happy? Like there's just this dollar amount and beyond that. It just becomes hard to,
Yeah, it was interesting research, which I think after that research has been published has been quite heavily criticized and recontextualized, to put it very mildly. But yeah, there seems to be a general amount of this. Was obviously a US study, so it is a dollar amount, and I don't think just switching the exchange rate fixes what you need per country. But there is the idea that after a while, there's just additional money is going to have diminished marginal utility, which is again a very famous concept from behavioral economics or behavioral science, if you will. But so if you steal to splurge, and you obviously don't, very clearly no one seems to steal to replenish their pension fund, which, I mean, if you're stealing anyway, like at least check out your pension fund, maybe think about it once or twice. But is that motivated also by the idea of knowing that you're going to get caught? And if it's in your pension fund, they can take it back. If it's gone to Disney, it's gone and you've had your fun.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is when I brought into a case and the business owners are like, well, they're going to pay me back, aren't they? And I just I look at them and I'm like, yeah, no, they used the money. They spent it. Like, there's one guy in the United States who stole $8.5 million. He's an accountant. He's the only one I know who literally paid taxes on his stolen money. That's the other thing, is they never pay taxes on it. So when they get caught, you've got the business owner and then you've got the IRS that's like, you need to pay taxes on that stolen money. So you're never going to get restitution. Like, it is so unusual to get a decent amount of restitution. Now, I had a woman who stole from a dentist $1 million. It took her 10 years to do it. So she was a little slow. And
yeah, embarrassing, really. Just could have been quicker about it.
Yeah. So when she was a gambler, that's one of my other ones on the bingo is gambling. We can talk about gambling. But when she was caught, she had a motorhome, and she did have a little bit of a retirement account. So when she was caught, she did turn over her motorhome, which the dentist had no interest in, because she would take the motorhome and go to the casino. But and she did have a little bit of a retirement. So he got a little money back. That's where, having an investigator come in is looking at, like, okay, do they have a retirement plan, and will they sign it over to you? And they might, because they think it will make it look better when they go to court and they plead guilty. That's the other thing, is these cases generally don't go to trial. The evidence is very clear. The money is here in the business, and it goes to the suspect. There's no, it's binders full of documents. So yeah, I mean, the business owners are kind of shocked, like, why can't I get my money back? And it's like, because it's at Disney, it's at Harrods, it's at fine Italian leather boots. Like, I mean, it's crazy, this stuff. I kind of call it clown money, in that when you have clown money, and no offense to clowns out there, because they do an excellent job. When you have money that you haven't earned by hard work, you're just frivolous. And you buy stuff.
What we call house money if you're gambling. I see. It's a very similar concept. Yeah, gotcha. Free money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's another thing. So, Dan Ariely did I recommend this movie all the time, The Dishonesty Project. And the distance between, like, you go up and you get chips instead of dollar bills. People cheat, more. Casinos are smart about that. We don't put dollars on the table. No. We put chips, because your mind there's a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. So that's where, like, casinos in the United States, we have Chuck E. Cheese, where the little kids learn at like age 3, Mom, I want some more tokens. And you're like, those aren't tokens, those are dollar bills. So,
right. Yeah. Right. So there's no pain of paying with embezzled money. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I love it. We will always come back to the theory on the pain of paying. That doesn't matter what topic we're discussing. We will get back to it.
Yeah, it's 6 degrees of pain of paying. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
On behavioral science, for sure.
What else is on the bingo card? What else is there? I need to know.
So there does seem to be a gender divide on the bingo card between what men and women spend their money on, which looks interesting. I mean, it's got men, they have the 3 W's, wine, women, and wages. I'm guessing this is straight men. And women, 3 C's, cars, clothing, and casinos, which is interesting. Yeah.
So that actually came from a famous criminologist, and they called it the 3 W's, and or it could have been the 3 B's, and you guys can figure out what the B's are instead of W's.
Oh God. Okay. Was it a male researcher? Yeah.
Yeah. Women do it more, the 3 C's, cars, clothing, and casinos. It's more just kind of, I'm going to say lifestyle. And I can Google fraud and Range Rover or fraud and Lamborghini, and you're not going to find a woman who buys a Lamborghini with stolen money. She might upgrade from a Toyota Corolla to a Camry. And I actually had a woman, she was a lawyer. She upgraded from a Camry to the Avalon, and it was really funny. We seized the Avalon, and her husband is like, that Avalon, I never liked it near as much as the Camry, but it was a nicer car. So they upgrade just a little bit. They're not going to go crazy. Like today, I'm doing a presentation for a IMA chapter in the States, and they want to know about COVID fraud. And like, oh my God, the COVID fraud and I'm going to say, dudes buying Lamborghinis, it's crazy. I have yet to see a chick buying a Lamborghini. There might be one out there. And
don't worry, I'll get there. As soon I'll let you know. As soon as you see me in a Lambo, you know that money is stolen, probably from a university.
But why is that? Can that just be explained by like different purchasing preferences, or are men, they tend to engage, I guess, in more risky behavior, so buy things that are going to look more suspicious because they don't think they're going to get caught, or what's going on?
So there's kind of a lot to unpack in that, and basically, I mean, I'm going to say men are generally a little more, I want to say status, like they want the Lambo. A woman wants kind of more safety and security, and they're more risk averse. So they're not going to, and I also think that the women know that eventually they're going to get caught more so than the men. The men and this is anecdotal. The men are kind of
don't worry about it. We have this in behavioral science. It's called overconfidence. You find it much more in men than in women. This is scientifically proven. Don't worry.
Yeah. So they're much more like, I'm too smart to get caught. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm too smart to get caught. Well, they get caught. So, and there's this, it's the Sykes and Matza theory of neutralization. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really complicated, but basically men are going to blame the system. Like, the business screwed me, or, the government, no one cares, or, it's just my part of it. Whereas a woman will point to a specific person. So that's where that goes to the rationalization. That woman has a really terrible boss who thinks that she's, some dumb blonde. Well, she's going to say, I did it because he deserved it. A man's not going to say, I did it because he deserved it. He's going to say, I did it because I deserve it.
Oh, interesting. So the self-serving bias is a nice motivator for men, but women do it as a form of punishment. I love that. Excellent. Excellent.
And I'm really staggered by this sort of 15% or was it 15% of the cases actually get reported, embezzlement cases? I mean, I know you said it's an unknown, but there must be, I'm assuming there's some selection here that certain types of cases are more likely to be reported. So do we know anything about why we see the cases that we see? Are there any theories about which ones are going to be more likely to be reported or not?
So the ACFE in their report to the nation, they have one thing that I find just absolutely fascinating. The higher you are up in an organization, the less likely you will be punished or terminated than someone down below. Now, I worked for a large multinational corporation, and they like to not only fire, but get administrative or low-level employees prosecuted. Yet the high-level employees, they either let them, quote, resign, or they maybe didn't give them a bonus for a year. It's embarrassing if your C-suite employee is in the paper for stealing from you.
Right.
It's not embarrassing if that nice little employee, stole some money, like, oh, well, but what if you got a C-suite executive who got caught embezzling $1 million? Stockholders are going to go, what's up? You guys, how did that happen? So they bury them. It's embarrassing. Again, the shame and humiliation, but they have no problem. So the master of the universe guy who I said got ripped off $750,000, when I met with him, he was so angry. I call it, he wanted to hang him in the town square. And I said to the guy because he was a trusted employee, he was his lieutenant. And I actually had to say, hold on, you have to understand, you are a very public person. And when this gets out, the people that invest with you are not going to think you're watching the shop. So we will get him prosecuted, but it will be quiet. Because you don't want your business on the front page of the paper saying $750,000 just walked out the door, because your investors, your colleagues, they're going to have less faith in you. And he was just like, I had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to reflect poorly on you. And in that case, it was a very weird embezzlement. There was an account that the business thought was closed, and it wasn't. And that's where the money went through. So it really was, there was an internal control that was missing, but it was a one-off. It was like a one-time thing. And, but that's where I say I'm like the fraud therapist or the fraud coach. I know what's going to happen, and I need to prepare the victim to have the best outcome possible.
So you predominantly deal with the victims now, but how often have you dealt with the perpetrator?
So I do criminal defense work, and I love it. It's some of the best work I do, because you know what? Law enforcement can make mistakes. And I mean, I have a federal and a local law enforcement background. anyone can make a mistake, but when a law enforcement officer makes a mistake, it can take someone's liberty away.
Yeah.
And you don't ever want that to happen. So doing the defense work, you are looking at everything. Whereas prosecution, they have a very narrow path that they are looking at. And so the defense work, you're looking at extenuating circumstances. How did it happen? Is there anyone else involved? I really love the defense work because I kind of get to look at everything. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think I've been hired by both sides. And that's why I get hired by both sides, is because they know, like, if I'm working for the prosecution, I can say, this is where the defense is going to see your weakness. So let's make sure that's not a weakness, and vice versa.
Right. I find it's so interesting, this reputational cost to the victim as well. It's like, no, you haven't just suffered this huge financial cost, but if it's not handled correctly in terms of the public eye and public reception and stakeholder reception, then you could also have this additional cost, which also has financial implications. So is that something that can be addressed? Can we try and reduce the reputational damage of victims of fraud and embezzlement?
Oh my gosh, this is so terrible. So, like, if you get your car stolen, and even if you left the keys in it,
yeah,
are people going to blame you? Are they going to say, oh my God, they are such an idiot? Like, or if you get your house robbed and just say your back door was unlocked or your window was open, are they going to blame you? Not really. You will read stories, especially on Facebook, oh my God, the sewer. I have a client who got ripped off $500,000. And when the story broke, they posted it on Facebook. The local newspaper posted on Facebook, and you can't believe the amount of victim shaming. And this is one of my soapboxes. Stop blaming the victims. Right. Like, this is hard enough as is. They're like, okay, well, that's a stupid business. I'm never going to support that business if they can't keep track of their money. This especially happens in nonprofits. When a nonprofit is ripped off, donations will go down. There's Gresham's law, which is, good money is not going to come after bad money. It's just the bad money drives out the good money, Gresham's law. So it's so important in nonprofits to handle it properly. And, but the victim shaming, this is, again, the internet, where anyone can post anything. And they're just like, what an idiot. How did they, not lose? Or, how were they so stupid to lose $500,000? They have no idea what went on. Absolutely none. But people have no problem posting that, a victim is an idiot. And it's my thing. It's like, you don't know. And it's hard if you're a victim to say that you're a victim, because you're going to get blasted. And people are going to say, God, they really weren't watching it. And you don't know that. It's just, but victim shaming it's got to go. It's just, think about it in like a sexual abuse case. It's kind of like, well, she was wearing a short skirt. Does that give someone a right to violate someone? No, absolutely not. But in these type of crimes, there's a lot of victim shaming going on.
Do we need to do more work about reframing the way that we talk about these crimes and about victimhood of these crimes? Like, what would you suggest should be something we should be doing right now in order to reduce victim blaming, which is obviously a horrible thing to experience?
Yeah. So, like, this is really interesting because a lot of times I look at a case through the lens of the fraud triangle. So what was the opportunity that happened? Was there rationalization that happened? And so maybe if instead of, the press release coming out that they've gone to Disneyland, it's the press release that due to a lack of the internal control of XYZ, this happened. And then businesses will go, oh my God, I do that. I should maybe not do that. So this is a really funny story. When I worked at the sheriff's office, I had a little bit of an issue with the public information officer because we were getting really good cases and really good, sentences of these people who stole. And the public information officer puts out stories of crime. and he had no interest in putting out the stories of embezzlement. And I would argue, I'm like, these stories are really important. Now, this was back in 2008-9 when there were newspapers and people read them, hard copy all the time.
I remember newspapers.
I don't.
The public information officer would send out stories to the newspaper about the kid crashing into, Carl's Jr. at 2 a.m. because they were stoned. And I'm like, okay, that's not a deterrent because kids don't read the newspaper. The deterrent would be the woman who stole from the dentist's office, and the business owners would go, oh my God, that happens? And then there was the Google effect, because I did background investigations. Once someone's name is out in a press release, it's not, you're going to find it. So I literally got banned from saying press release in the weekly meetings. And my sergeant was like, just give it up. He's not ever going to do it. So there's always different ways to skin cats. I went to the woman who did the newsletter for the county for the quarter, and I would give her the cases, and she'd put it in the cases, and the Google effect would work, and people would read the stories about it. So I got my way.
You seem like, you're quite headstrong, you're quite practical. You'll get your way. You know how to get there. I feel like if you turn out to be a fraudster that will have just gone like full circle, you might never get caught. And then I will have some questions about those Italian leather boots.
Yes, that would be the biggest plot twist of all time. You're defrauding us right now.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
You know what is really funny? This is one of the things, and I don't remember if it's on my bingo card or not, but I've done this work with a forensic psychologist. And when you have a suspect and you go to interview them, there's a lot that has to happen beforehand. But the question you ask them, tell me about the first time you stole. And it is ingrained in their brain. It's like, okay, you guys, did you ever steal from a piece of candy from the store?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
What kind of candy was it?
It was the heart-shaped sweets, the really soft one, the jelly type, the Haribo type.
Okay. What about you, Sarah?
I don't want to sound like an angel, but I don't think I've stolen anything.
God damn it, Sarah, leave me hanging.
Well, okay, so I never stole candy, but when I was about 14 or 15 years old, I had a friend who I'm not going to say it was a lot of peer pressure. We were at this resort and there was a sort of Christmas themed, display, and there was a teddy bear, and she dared me to get it. So I went and I took the teddy bear and I went home, and for a week I was physically sick. I went back the next week and I put it back. I was like, So the question is, when you ask this person the first time they stole, they remember the exact moment. And I've done this. And Nathan Mueller, who stole $8.5 million, he's like, it was $27,800 and blah, blah. I had a woman who stole $250,000 from doctors. And I asked her, I said, tell me about the first time you stole. And she's like, it was a Friday afternoon. A check came in. It wasn't in either billing system. I walked to the bank. I got a cashier's check. She goes on. It's like 10 minutes. I could have asked her, what were you wearing? And she might have remembered it. But if I would have
remember what you had for breakfast, how were the children?
Yeah. And so if I would have said, tell me 6 months later what you had stolen, she would have said, I don't know. I stole a bunch of money. But the first time, because it's imprinted in our brain, just like you remembered the heart soft thing. So that's a really important thing. Once they cross that line, then it's a blur. But the first time, so now this does not count for serial embezzlers, or I'm going to say psychopaths, but the honest people stealing who have never done this before, they will remember it. Just like, okay, Sarah, you never stole. You're really, really honest. What's the name of your first boyfriend?
Whoa. Kelly, let's retract this. She says she never stole, and as a result you call her honest. This can all be one big lie. This can all be for reputational benefit. We don't know this.
This is true.
I'm pleading the fifth.
I'm a psychopath.
Yeah.
But what's the name of your the first boy you ever kissed? Do you remember?
Yes.
Oh.
Do you remember what's his name?
Yes. His name is Harry.
Hi,
Harry. I'm so British. I'm so embarrassed. How could you do this to me, Kelly? On my own podcast.
Now,
yeah.
You're young, so maybe this doesn't count. Okay, what's the name of the 10th boy you've kissed?
No.
It's kind of like the first time you stole versus the 10th time. You don't remember.
I mean, you've definitely proved your point, and now I'm very embarrassed, so double win.
I'll get back to you later on that one. Maybe I'll figure it out. I doubt it.
Yeah. That's so there must be something about memory and implanting, like you get such like a visceral reaction to that first time, and it's I mean it's really interesting about this idea that honest people steal as well.
That's at the core of my pink collar crime, is that like, I don't want to make it about gender, but women excel at embezzlement because they're in the positions where it's easy to, embezzle. But my thing is that, like, there are good people and there are bad people. But there are also good people who make bad choices. There are bad people who make good choices. So in the United States, this was years ago, there was a guy in like Ohio who had like women in his basement for years. Like, had women in his basement for years. And when he got caught by a guy who was a bad guy who heard something and went to the police. Now, that bad guy might have been too scared to go to the police, but he knew he needed to do something. And so he did something, but he was like, he had a record. And that's how those women were found, was a bad guy doing a good thing. And you can have a good person doing a bad thing. So we don't always stay in our lanes. We would like to stay in our lanes, but life happens.
Yeah, no, I can definitely, I mean, now that you've explained the triangle, I can definitely see that rationalization and pressures can do a lot in moving us in the wrong direction. So is it the psychopaths or the people that just for some reason cannot feel regular basic human emotion that also turn out to be serial embezzlers? Is that what is required to do this time after time after time again with different targets?
Yeah, so there's this mother and daughter, and they are just grifters. So like a serial embezzler, I kind of think a little bit of a line between the serial embezzler and the grifter. And like this mother and daughter, they're just grifters. They're just grifters. Wherever they can get it, they will get it, the money. There are serial embezzlers who just, like, I had a case recently, a woman reached out to me, and she got ripped off by, I'm going to say, a serial embezzler, because the embezzler clearly keeps it under a certain amount of money that she knows law enforcement will not be interested in. And then when the victim reported her to law enforcement, the suspect actually said, she stiffed me. She's the one who's the crook. And so she knows enough to know how to work the system. So this is a case where I actually told the woman, I'm like, you filed a police report. It's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to fight it. And really nothing's going to happen because she knows the system. And I don't like to say that. Eventually law enforcement will get enough that then they'll finally figure it out. But
so heartbreaking.
There are the serial embezzlers out there, but I think on average, it's like Dan Ariely says with locks. Locks are for 2% of the population, 1% that will get in no matter what. And the other 1% is it will stop people. But 98%, I go to bed with my door unlocked. Okay, no one knows where I live. No, sure. I'm kidding. I lock my door, but only because I have my family. But how many times could you go to bed with your door unlocked and never have something happen? Because most people are decent.
Yeah. No, that's very fair.
That's a nice note to end on as well. Yeah. Most people, there is hope in the world. I mean, you spend so much time looking at these cases. I mean, it's a nice reminder. I mean, and for someone who's just heard about pink collar crime in the last hour, they've just been introduced to the subject. What's maybe one or two things that you would want to leave them with, sort of at the end of this conversation? What's important to take away, do you think?
Okay, and it comes back to a hashtag. Hashtag never underestimate a woman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the largest municipal embezzlement in this country was Rita Crunwell in Dixon, Illinois. And Dr. Frida Adler, who wrote this book in 1975 called Sisters in Crime, The Rise of the New Female Criminal, what she says is women first are human. Second, they're female. And third, if given the opportunity, they may commit a crime. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so true. Women are not more honest than men. And actually, oh my God, in the Dishonesty Project with Dan Ariely, this is so funny, and maybe this is more, but I went and I saw Ariely when he came out to Portland, and mm-hmm. I asked him this question. I said, are women more honest than men? And then in the movie, they have a woman, and it's not me, ask the same question. And Ariely he nails it. He's like, well, the funny thing is women are the one who always ask this question. And it's just like, it's one of the best lines of the movie. And in the work he's done, women are not more honest than men. So another hashtag no honesty chromosome. We grow up, if you have a child and you take them into a store and you say, if you get lost from me, look for the nice lady to help you find me. Look for the nice female, nice woman cop to find me. We don't say, go look for the bad guy. We don't say, go look for the man. We say, go look for the nice lady. And if you see a bad guy, scream and yell and run. It's so stereotypical. Mm-hmm. But that's what we've grown up with. So never underestimate a woman. That's what I'm going to leave you with.
Amazing.
I love it. We might take that as the hashtag of the podcast.
Oh, yes. And I would like someone to put this on a shirt.
Yes,
I will wear that shirt very proudly in every possible color available, not just pink. So, Kelly, this was an absolutely amazing conversation. Last question is always, where can the audience find you, and what of your social media would you like to plug so that people can keep up to date with your absolutely fascinating work?
So like you found me, I'm on Twitter, PDXCFE. I'm on LinkedIn, Kelly Paxton. I've got pinkcollarcrime.com. And then my podcast that just launched in October is Great Women in Fraud. And I did the podcast because I have so many women reaching out to me, and men, but more women than men, that want to do this type of work. And so I started as a passion project. I have subject matter experts. I will have male guests on it. It's just right now I've had just women on it. The podcast, like you guys know, is this not so much fun to be able to do this?
Yeah, so it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be my next podcast. I'm going to take in and on my bike ride. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about it and wishing that I could change my career, but alas.
No, I want to change mine to yours.
Well, we should Freaky Friday sometime, Kelly. I think we could swap positions. I think it would be great. But I think that's just to say from us, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing so much amazing insight with us. We both loved having you. And just to say thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Anything to spread the word on pink collar crime. I love it. And this, honestly, most fun podcast I've ever done.
Aw, Kelly.
So that was us talking to the absolutely amazing Kelly Paxton. I've learned so much, genuinely. The fact that there is a fraud triangle and a bingo card. I am so excited. Like, I don't think I've ever been this excited about a pink collar crime bingo card or a bingo card in general. How about you, Sarah? What did you think?
Oh, no, I loved it. I loved meeting Kelly. I think her area of specialism is so interesting. And I think she's carving out such an amazing section of crime and behavioral science and this sort of intersection that, I think pink collar crime is so fascinating. And I have actually downloaded Kelly's podcast and have listened to a couple of episodes, and I can definitely recommend it to the listener. If you really did enjoy what you heard today, you can hear so much more. There's so much more out there to learn. I mean, I was pretty relieved to be reassured that pink collar crime is not a gendered thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are gendered aspects of the criminal behavior and who's more likely to be a perpetrator and a victim. But I mean, and this bingo card, I think Disneyland, like I was so perplexed, and now I'm like, of course, like what happens when you get, you know, £50,000 in your bank account and you're like, I'm just going to go to Disney. It's sort of like
blow it in Club 33. I mean,
right.
This is now a bucket list goal for me. Club 33, that's where it's at.
I mean, it's almost like, you know, I've heard on the internet people say that Donald Trump is like someone who's poor their idea of what a rich person is and does and looks like who literally lives in a golden tower with a golden toilet, right, and just is just so extra. So it's one of those things where it's almost makes the crime relatable, right, in a way that you think this is sort of such an ordinary person response. Yeah, and I mean that's worrying as well. I mean that we talked a little bit about that with Kelly about that's sort of had unintended consequences for the victims and victim blaming, and you know, which extremely negative. And actually being a victim of a crime, it feels so degrading and so intrusive, and it does have huge effects on the victims. But
absolutely. But I mean, I find it very easy, maybe slightly too easy for comfort, to move myself into the mindset of someone who, I mean, as Kelly described it, like we can all just imagine this, that you're working very, very long hours in a job where you do actually deal with your superiors, because, you know, they show up and they give you, you know, an accounts payable for £20,000 or dollars, you know, wherever you are in the world, because they took their family to a luxury location just because they had to be there for like a one-day conference, but they spend a week there. And you haven't been on holiday in God knows how long because you can't afford it. And actually, this is not even your only job and you're barely getting by. And that is a mindset where you don't want to be in that mindset, but it is such an easy to understand mindset that you know, if someone is stealing from the company, because that is essentially what it is. I'm sorry, right, but like your family is not, you know, the accounts payable are not for you to take your family to Malibu. Like, I'm sure the company can afford it, but that's not the point. And because this is a different form of stealing, which is much more normalized, to some extent legal, and very much, you know, socially acceptable, if you will. Yeah. Why is the other form not? And then you get into a nice ethical/moral debate. And I think that if you had a rough day, a rough week, or a rough life, you're gonna lose that moral debate with yourself, and you will steal. And that is a mindset that I can get into very, very easily. And to be quite frank, no, but it sounds really dumb, but I can't condemn it, because to condemn such a mindset is to ignore extreme structural inequality, which, to be quite frank, if you don't think there is extreme structural inequality, you are delusional. Yeah, or at least only benefiting from the current system as it is. Yeah, but that shouldn't close your eyes to structural inequality. Like, I mean, I have to admit, like, this is a crime, and especially if you're doing this in, like, not in a huge firm, but in, like, you know, these small to medium firms, which I do think is encapsulated in the definition, then of course what you're doing is quite personally attacking a person. Like, to steal from Amazon is very different than to steal from, you know, the local building company, if you will. So to some extent, to me, the mindset from stealing from a very large corporation is much easier to grasp than to steal from a much smaller company. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of Robin Hood mentality, and I think that's part of what's dangerous and interesting about this type of crime, is that it's so easily justifiable to yourself, right? And you can probably find a million reasons why, you know, no one will miss this, or, you know, this isn't a bad thing for me to do because of all of these other things that have happened, all things that I've experienced. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, even if you're stealing from Amazon, you're still stealing from someone who is a person or people within the corporation who... Are we sure Bezos is a person? Are we that sure? No, but I'm pretty sure he employs people sometimes. Sure.
Right. You know, like there are managers like across different levels of the company. So if you steal from a warehouse, then how does that affect people who work in that warehouse or who are supposed to have that responsibility? So I think that's part of the justification, is that you can remove people. You can say, I'm not hurting individual people, I'm hurting this organization or this faceless company. But at the end of the day, it is people that are getting hurt. And I mean, yeah, it's a fascinating crime, and there's so many examples that, you know, of individual cases where people have done their best to get away with this crime, or that it makes there's so much out there that it makes it so interesting. But yeah, people are getting hurt, so I don't know.
I love how you are taking a much more empathetic viewpoint of this. I'm already planning my next steal, and you're like,
I'm worried.
People are getting hurt, and I'm like,
yes. I've changed all my passwords already. I'm keeping my distance from you now.
I see. So, I mean, to get back to a much older episode we did with Kelly Shortridge, do you now have two-factor authentication on everything, Sarah?
I did, and then I lost the password for the password protector and authenticator. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So, I mean, Sarah, if you were worth any money, I would steal from you just for the sake of proving that you need better password. I would give you back the money. But I feel by this stage, it's, you know, let's just leave it. Anyway, I feel like we're deviating from the original topic. Again, we want to thank Kelly so much for making the time. Like, Sarah and I, we adore crime in each and every form, of course, not as being victims of it, but just the mindset, the way it can just completely spin out of control. I almost have some type of respect for people who actually manage to accumulate hundreds of thousands or millions of stolen money. Of course, completely ignoring the victims. And there were victims. I will emphasize that there were victims, and this is a crime that does deserve to be condemned. But fucking hell, this shit's interesting.
Indeed. And I mean, if we ever get Kelly back on the podcast, like, we would definitely love to continue talking about this. But for now, I'm just going to deep dive into her podcast and
absolutely,
yes, envelop myself in the world of pink collar crime even longer. But yeah.
Guys, as always, all Kelly's stuff is linked below. Genuinely 100% recommend her podcast. Her other socials are obviously also linked below, and so are ours, if you wish to follow our journey through the many, many aspects of behavioral science, because there's many aspects to it, for which I am very, very thankful. As always, we hope this episode was interesting, entertaining, educational, or at least thought-provoking, and we hope to see you next week, and we hope you have a great week.
Yeah, bye guys.
You're the dummy that don't believe in science. All your projects always be denying. You're